Reddit Fresh.
Would I be the idiot if I reported the delivery driver who keeps showing up at my door in the middle of the night? Around the end of last year, one of the local fast food places started doing deliveries, and I, 38F, took advantage of the convenience. Because I live in a small town, most of the time it was the same delivery guy, we'll call him Ronald, mid-male 40s, bringing my food. And to begin with, it was fine. I'd smile, say hello, thank you, take my food, and all's good. In October, I got COVID. Wasn't too bad, but my voice was destroyed from coughing, and in the weeks after I sounded pretty wretched. I guess something about me being sick made Ronald decide I wasn't okay in general, because he got a lot more chatty after that. Always asking how I was and telling me he cared about me. It was awkward, but I figured he was just being nice. Anyway, mid-November, he showed up at my door at almost 3 a.m. I'm a night owl, so I was still up, and there he was. Visibly drunk, kinda swaying in place, going on about how he'd been walking home and saw my lights on as he passed and decided to stop and chat. Now, I am a very anxious, non-confrontational person by nature. With a strange man at my door, the last thing I wanted to do was antagonize, so I just smiled, nodded along with what he was saying, and tried to get him to leave. He asked to come inside, and I did shut that down quickly, but otherwise I don't think I was very firm in asserting boundaries. He left after a few minutes, didn't get angry or scary or anything, just left me pretty shook up. I stopped ordering from that restaurant and didn't see him again until 2 months later when he appeared again around 2 a.m. This time I was in bed reading and didn't engage. I could hear him calling out, asking if I was awake and if I was okay, then he left, muttering something to himself. It's been 4 months since then, and I'd let myself believe that it was all fine and he decided to stop bothering me. Yeah, right. Tonight at 11:30 p.m. I heard noises outside. Ronald is back, slamming the doorbell, calling out to me. I spoke to him through the door, told him that it wasn't okay to keep showing up and that if it happened again I'd call the police. He just kept repeating that it was fine, and left. Now, a few hours later, I'm still sitting up wondering if I should do something this time. I'm not worried about him in the sense that I feel I'm in any danger. He's never actually done anything. But it makes me anxious wondering if he's going to show up again, and so incredibly angry that he has the audacity to think this kind of behavior is okay. I don't want to make things hard for him and potentially cost him his job if I report him to his workplace, and until tonight I wasn't super clear in telling him to leave me alone. But I feel like I shouldn't have to explain that knocking on a woman's door late at night when she's not expecting you is a bad thing, and after 3 times, I can't just ignore this anymore. So, would I be the idiot if I reported him? Not the idiot. On what planet would you be an idiot for reporting someone that's literally stalking you? I'm not trying to be rude, but if you genuinely believe there's any possibility that you could be the idiot in this situation, I think you have some people-pleasing tendencies you need to work on. This is like asking if you're a prick for being upset someone stabbed you. I mean this in the kindest, most empathetic way possible. You need to work on your boundaries and how non-confrontational you are. You're going to get really hurt one of these days. Not the idiot. What he's doing is wildly inappropriate at best, stalking and harassment at worst. It's definitely trespassing since he wasn't there to deliver anything and you told him to leave. He's a grown man. He has no excuse to not know that. Also, it's never rude to just not answer the door to someone you didn't invite. Don't open it. Don't talk to them through it. Ignore them until they leave, and if they're not leaving, call the police. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot for wanting to turn my late daughter's bedroom into my newborn son's? I, female 29, and my husband, male 31, had a daughter, Casey, who died at the age of 2. There were complications in my pregnancy, and we were told she would be lucky to even make it to 2. We still gave her a bedroom, completed with pink walls, toys, and a crib. She never stayed in it, however, she slept in our room. Casey passed away 4 years ago. A month ago, we had our second child, a healthy baby boy, Dylan. There were no complications, and we want to give him the life his sister couldn't have. For the past month, he has also been staying in our room, but my husband and I agreed that we should try sleeping in another room. Our house only has 2 bedrooms, ours and what was Casey's. The crib, toys, and everything we got are still in there, so we wouldn't have to buy anything new or throw anything out. Now, a little context before the issue. My mother-in-law, Deb, was very close with Casey. A lot of the stuff in her room was either paid partially or entirely by Deb. She felt very strongly about our baby girl and even talked about her being the favorite grandchild. When Casey died, Deb was devastated. She paid for half the funeral expenses, while my mom paid for the other half. I have also always considered Deb and I to have a good relationship. We all grieved and healed together. She also seems to feel strongly about Dylan, but not in the same way she felt about Casey. Last week, Deb came over for dinner. She wanted to see us, and we're always glad to have her over. We all sat down to eat, and Deb asked us about how having Dylan in the house was. My husband explained that co-sleeping was great, but we wanted to see how he would do on his own. Deb asked what we meant by this, and we explained that we were thinking about bringing him into Casey's room, as it would also be a good playroom even if Dylan doesn't sleep in there in the end. After we said this, Deb stopped eating, excused herself from the table, and walked outside. My husband and I followed her and asked her what was wrong. She starts scolding us, calling us horrible and heartless for trying to erase Casey. We tried to explain that we will always have Casey in our hearts, but Deb was not having any of it. She accused us of hating Casey and that we considered Dylan our only child. She said she will never be coming over or inviting us to any family event if we put Dylan in Casey's room. She left after that. My husband and I were shocked by this reaction. Deb has never reacted to anything like this before. She's always the one to be calm and collected during arguments and issues. But this blow-up has us thinking, were we wrong? Do we really have a bias towards Dylan? We don't feel this is the case, so I brought it here for another opinion. Reddit, am I the idiot? Edit, for moving Dylan into Casey's room, there would be a few changes, but not many. We would repaint the walls a very light powder blue and properly store away anything that was personalized for Casey. My mom made blankets for both babies, and Casey's is in a frame. We're a little tight on money, so Dylan would use the crib and toys there until we can get him other things. We do not plan on pushing Deb away, but space sounds like the best option while we all cool down. Edit 2, wow, there's a lot of comments. Henry and I dropped Dylan off with my mom and went to Dave and Buster's for 2 hours, and now I come back to 155 comments. I'm going to try to respond to as many people as I can to answer questions, but I might not get too far tonight as we just put Dylan down and Mama needs some sleep. Edit 3, I actually can't believe I left out a super important piece of information after we lost Casey. Henry and I waited 3 years to try for another baby. We went through 3 miscarriages before we had Dylan. Dylan is a miracle. There's a strong possibility that with my complications with my first and 3 miscarriages, I won't be able to have any more children without it compromising mine and or the baby's health. Not the idiot. I can see that she's having an extreme emotional reaction, but it isn't rational. You don't have a room dedicated to a shrine while a living child doesn't have a room. What are you going to do in a year, or more extreme, 10 years? Are you perpetually going to have an empty room while your growing child sleeps with you? It also really isn't fair to play the guilt card of hating or erasing your dead child because you need to use the room. Not the idiot. Firstly, I'm sorry for you guys' loss. I know this is a sensitive subject, so I'll put it like this. Casey is unfortunately no longer with you guys. Whether the room is changed now or 10 years from now, that fact will never change. I understand Deb is hurt, but I'm sure you guys are too, so that's no excuse to act out. Deb is ultimately being unfair to Dylan and you guys. This is something she should be supporting to help you move forward for Dylan. Ultimately, it's up to you guys, and Deb needs to respect that or keep her distance. Again, sorry about your baby girl. Now for the next story. Would I be the idiot for only paying 1 month's rent? I, female 30, have recently been diagnosed with 2, possibly 3, conditions that likely mean that I will be disabled for life after having COVID last year. As a result of this, I am having to leave my career at the end of this month and work freelance for far fewer hours and unknown pay. My partner was supportive of the decision to leave and agreed it was the right decision for me. I did not make this decision without consulting him. I have £5,000 debt and £6,000 savings. I am unlikely to reliably earn a consistent wage, and it is likely to be small due to my reduced capacity for work. For this reason, I want to use my savings to pay off my debt and have 1 month of basic living costs where I pay rent. My partner has insisted for a long time that I need to get out of debt, and while it didn't feel urgent enough to use savings for before, it definitely does now because I've lost my reliable income, so now feel worried I will not be able to pay it off in the future unless I do so right now. I may qualify for some benefits, ESA and PIP, but do not qualify for universal credit due to my partner's savings and income. We are unmarried but have been together for nearly 12 years and have lived together for 3.5 years. My partner, male 31, earns nearly twice my previous income when employed full-time and has savings that exceed a year of my previous wages. When I was earning full-time, we both paid proportionally towards rent and bills, so he has been paying more towards these than I did and has done consistently for 3.5 years. When I went to half pay, my share was reduced from £500 to £380 per month. If I was applying for benefits as a single person, I would be entitled to benefits that would cover my share of the rent/bills and also give me £300 to live on each month, but I am not entitled to these because of my partner's income. I am upset that the government takes his earnings into consideration, as one of the reasons he doesn't want to get married to me is because he doesn't like the idea of being financially responsible for another person. My partner has asked that seeing as I have 3 months of my pre-illness income saved, could I use that money to pay my normal, pre-illness share of rent for the next 3 months. I feel really uncomfortable doing this because that will mean I remain in debt. I would rather work freelance next month and pay a proportion of what I earn as my contribution towards rent. I brought up the fact I'm not qualifying for benefits because the government takes his earnings and savings into consideration because they expect him to be supportive first before reaching out for government assistance. Update: he has said that after these 3 months he will continue to do the agreement, so we'd pay proportionally. If I earn 5% of what he earns, I pay 5% of the rent. It's only because 6K equals 3 months of income pre-illness that he wants 3 months of rent paid. I would still be able to pay off some of my debt and could prioritize the debt with higher interest. Final update: I am using the money to pay off debt, not the idiot. His 3-month argument is a little ridiculous, Imho. You've been together long enough for him to realize you're not there to take his dollars. It's good that you're seeing a counselor. His attitude doesn't seem particularly supportive. No idiots here. I think his request is reasonable since this is pre-illness income and since you guys aren't married. BF and GFs don't generally take the wedding vows of in sickness and in health, so though it would definitely be better and nicer if he felt inclined to go the extra mile anyways, the reality is that's not the nature of your relationship status at present. Now for the next story. Am I the idiot, female 22, for choosing to take meds that my BF, male 27, is allergic to? Over the past few weeks I have been quite sick. Yesterday morning I woke both my BF, Jake, and myself up with a coughing fit. So I decided to go to the doctor's that morning. The doctor said that there was some inflammation in my throat, so he prescribed me with penicillin over the next few days. I had no problem with taking this, but I did know that Jake is allergic to penicillin. Once I got my meds, I called him to tell him where I would keep it so that he can stay away from it. He told me that it couldn't be in the apartment and I can't take it around him because he was deathly allergic to it. He said I should get rid of it and take pain meds to get better on my own instead. I suggested that I could go stay at my parents' house for the next few days whilst I'm taking my meds. He said that we'd talk about it when he got home, but until then I either needed to get rid of them or leave them in my car without taking them. But I didn't want to wait 7 hours for him to come home before taking them. I decided to just go to my parents' house because I wanted to take them, and I'd probably end up going there later after we talked. When I got to my parents', I stayed in bed for the rest of the day and fell asleep at some point. I woke up around 5 a.m. to loads of calls and texts from Jake and some mutual friends asking where I was. I waited a while before calling Jake back and he asked where I was, and when I answered he angrily told me that it was disrespectful of me to leave without waiting for him to discuss this and that I was making a big situation by ignoring his calls last night. I tried to explain to him that I wasn't ignoring him, that I'm sick and I had fallen asleep with my parents and that I didn't think it would be a big deal because I had already suggested it on the phone to him yesterday. He said that he didn't remember me telling him this, and that he was calling friends all last night asking if they knew where I was, and that it was suspicious that I had been distant with him for the past few weeks just to disappear last night. I may be the AH for this part, but I told him that it's not my fault that he didn't remember me telling him this, and that he knew I had been feeling unwell over the past few weeks, which explains why I was distant. I then said that he was the one being ridiculous, as there was no way that having penicillin in the same apartment as him would even cause any problems if he stayed away from it. After this, he said that I was being TA for belittling him and not taking his allergies seriously. He then told me to just stay with my parents for the next while until he's ready to talk again before hanging up, and he's not answered any of my calls since. As I've been stuck in bed thinking about it, part of me just feels like I might have been too stubborn and I could have avoided all of this by waiting a couple of hours or trying to get better without antibiotics. Am I the idiot? NTA, OP, you are ill and need to take your meds. Staying with your parents is a reasonable compromise. If your BF is worried about being in the same apartment while you are taking antibiotics, he might call a medical professional to find out if his fear is valid. In any event, you did let him know that going to your parents' place was an option. He says he forgot and is dredging up accusations of distancing and relationship issues. I wonder what his goal is with this. Not the idiot. He is being ridiculous. Also, quite controlling. You need antibiotics because, based on your description and your PCP's prescription, you have strep throat. A strep as an adult can very easily sap you of all strength, so sleeping a lot isn't unusual, and you are right, if he stays away from the pills, he shouldn't have any adverse reaction. If you liked this video, you will probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.